Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections in mind. This month I haven't seen many great movies, but one of the ones that I have seen recently, and I didn't expect to make a review of it, but I wanted to talk about it anyway, is the movie Silence. This movie is directed by Martin Scorcese. It stars Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, and Liam Neeson, and it's the story of a pair of 17th century Jesuit priests who have to go to Japan during a time of great persecution against Christians in order to find out the fate of a third priest who they believe may have apostatized against the Christian faith, meaning that he has given up his faith. Now, this review will contain certain spoilers. I don't think I'm going to give away too much in this review, but there will be certain spoilers of this movie Silence, as well as certain plot elements of two other films, which I'll mention in the description below. If you haven't seen Silence yet, or either of the films that I've listed below, and want to wait until you have, stop the video at this point and come back later. With these things in mind though, let's begin.
Here we go again?
No, not again.
You've been fooled.
How long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the
And again until we're both dead.
So as I stated before, Silence is the story of two 17th century Jesuit priests, played by Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver. They have to go to 17th century Japan during a time when Christians in Japan are being heavily persecuted. They're going there in order to ascertain the status of a third priest who has been in Japan for quite a long time, and they believe he may have apostatized against the Christian faith, meaning that that he has basically renounced the Christian faith as false. And they don't believe that has happened, so they want to go to Japan to find out if this is really true. Now, as far as movies goes, this movie is based on a 1966 novel by, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, Shosuke Endo. And the main character, the one character of this film, mainly Liam Neeson's character, is the real-life historical figure of Pastor Ferreira of Portugal. And Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver's characters play two priests who, while amalgamations of other people and basically characters in this novel, it is based on, the character Ferreira is based in historical fact, as he was a missionary who did apostatize against Christian faith in 17th century Japan. But as far as historical drama goes, and its fact is based off a novel, I have to say that there are certain elements of this film that you have seen before. Really only in the context of themes and plot type developments. What do I mean by that? Well, on the one hand, this movie is rated R for a very good reason. It delves deep into the type of religious persecution that the Japanese did in the 17th century. It was not a pleasant time for these people. The Japanese were very inventive with torture, and this, as a movie that explores the types of depths that the Japanese historically went through in the 17th century that continued from their ancient roots, that same sort of thing can be seen in another film which revolves heavily around this sort of character development, Unbroken. Now, the film Unbroken revolves around a World War II pilot, former Olympiad runner of the U.S., who was shot down and captured by the Japanese, and the rest of the film after that point basically revolves around the Japanese single him out for some rather interesting torture and not really persecution, but odd punishments in order to break him, but they never really do, and he's basically singled out for basically a certain fascination by this one guard, the head guard of the camp that person was imprisoned at the time of World War II. Same thing goes in Silence, where this movie explores the kind of persecution that Christians underwent under Japanese rule during this specific time. Is in fact based on historical events where Christians essentially rose up trying to overthrow persecution in Japan. They failed, and the Japanese kingdoms at the time basically cracked down even harder, and this would go on, and the persecuted Christian was going on during this time and would go on well into the 19th century actually. So there's another way, that's just a thematic element of how this film and the movie Unbroken kind of go together, where they both explore Japanese torture in a historical context. Now, I said there was another film that that movie essentially is very similar to another film, and it's real, but it's not a perfect comparison, but I would say from a general plot-based thematic element, these two are very similar. I'm talking about the movie Apocalypse Now. That film is basically a Vietnam-era retelling of the Joseph Conrad novel Heart of Darkness, in which Martin Sheen's character plays this army soldier during the Vietnam War, and he has to he is sent into the Vietnamese jungle, a very hostile environment at the time, obviously, in order to find the Colonel Kurtz, who was a theoretically respected army officer at the time, but they think that he's gone completely around the bend, and they have to find out what happened to him. And when they go there, when Martin eventually finds Colonel Kurtz, they find that not only did he actually kind of go around the bend, but he actually learns what drove him to that point, and in a very real way, he kind of falls to the same sort of situation that Colonel Kurtz did. Very similar to what happens in Silence, in which Andrew Garfield's character is the priest who goes to Japan to find out what happened to Father Ferreira, who was the pastor who essentially brought Andrew Garfield's character into the faith, and so he's very respected in that eye. And then when he finally meets Ferreira in Japan, he finds out not only did he apostatize, but he Liam Neeson's character Ferreira ends up kind of showing Andrew Garfield's character how he came to this conclusion, and Andrew Garfield kind of really falls to that sort of thing as well. So, as I said, there are a lot of things I could spoil with this movie, and that kind of gives away the ending of this movie a bit, but I'm not going to spoil too much with this review, because I feel like with this sort of movie, it's a very powerful film, it's a very uncomfortable film, and it really kind of pushes you to feel what these characters I feel like. I feel like Scorsese did a really great job with conveying these actors into showing us and making us feel what these people were going through at this time. And he uses sound very skillfully in order to make the audience on edge and off balance, so that when stuff happens in this movie that propels characters, we actually kind of feel along with them. And that's what a great movie should do, and I feel like that's what this movie does, and it should be going to the end. And I would recommend seeing this film. If there are anything bad I can say against this film, it's that some people might be turned off by the fact that it is a 2-hour and a 41-minute movie, and for some people with maybe a shorter attention span, maybe people who aren't drawn to things that go on for a long time without a lot of things technically happening so much, without major developments, then this movie might be a little bit difficult to make it through on that basis. Also, again, if you are really uncomfortable with with depicting very graphic depictions of torture during this time in certain cases, then you might not be willing to see this movie on those grounds. Although I feel like that's kind of missing the point, that you're supposed to experience things, but just fair warning, this is a very brutal film on those grounds. However, all being said, there was nothing new under the sun. As I just said, this movie is a great movie, has great cast, great direction, great sound design especially. but from a thematic standpoint, it really is not breaking anything new ground as far as covering a storyline or depicting historical Japanese torture, as we've seen previously in the movies Unbroken and Apocalypse Now. But yeah, nothing new under the sun, and you have seen it before. So thank you so much for watching. Till next time, thanks for watching.